Blog Talk Radio.
You're listening to Talent Culture's T-Chat Radio. The World of Work is live now on the radio with Megan M. Biro and Kevin W. Grossman, because middle initials count.
Come down, turn the radio on. Take my hand, turn the radio on. Come on, my favorite song, babe. Let's dance, turn the radio on.
Welcome, everybody out there in Talent Culture T-Chat Show land. It is another Talent Culture Show, T-Chat Show. We're really excited. It's Wednesday, October 28th. It is 1 p.m. if you're on the East Coast, as my better half is, as well as our guest, or 10 a.m. on the West Coast where I am, where we're expecting rain in Santa Cruz. So with you, as always, is Kevin W. Grossman and, of course, the lovely and talented Megan M. Biro. Hi, Megan.
Oh, you're so generous. Thank you. It's great to be here.
Yeah, we got to celebrate our birthdays together right before we left HR Tech last week, huh? That was fun.
We did. Vegas was a blast. What a fun city to have a birthday in, I tell ya. Between our birthdays being Libras and celebrating all that sexy HR technology at the conference, it was quite a week. I think we're all still a little hungover in a good way.
Still exhausted from fabulous Las Vegas, and I was even tried to be good, but we always still stay up a little bit later than we should, and then but we had a great live show last week, which was nice. The kind of
it totally
round
rocked.
out HR Tech, which was really nice with our lovely guests that we had there last week. So why don't let's dive right into this thing, because we've got another great show, another great topic that we're going to be talking about, how hiring managers can reduce the cost of hiring. First, we want to thank all of our friends and sponsors. First and foremost, Workable, who's the sponsor of today's show, as well as the founder and CEO who's our guest today. Smashfly, iCIMS, Dice, Jibe, TalentWise, IBM Career Builder, PeopleFluent, Smart Search, and of course our analytics partner, HR Marketer Insight, and also the Talent Board and the Candidate Experience Awards, which I'm now a proud part of as well. And Megan continues to be involved in that program. So welcome, everybody. Last week we talked about why recruitment should be transparent marketing, and this week we're going to talk about how hiring managers, again, can reduce the cost of hiring. Everybody knows it's an increasingly competitive and hiring environment out there today. Hiring managers must improve their engagement and performance with recruiters and candidates alike in order to hire and retain top talent. But unfortunately, all too often, this is far from the ideal, and we all know all the reasons why, and we're going to discuss those today as well. Of course, the importance is crucial to hiring success and reducing the cost of hiring, and overall, a high percentage of mature talent acquisition functions report that they have high-performing relationships with hiring managers, and we definitely want to hit on that one today. And and if you're doing this, if you do have those high-performing engagement and relationships with your hiring managers, you're going to excel and save potentially millions a year in talent acquisition costs as well. So if you're listening out there, of course, we hope you are. We want you to participate on the Twitter chat during the show, and then right after in the Twitter chat portion, which is 1:30 to 2 p.m. Eastern, 10:30 to 11 a.m. Pacific time following the show. So let's get to our guest.
Oh, my goodness. I am so beyond excited about today's guest because he's here in Boston, where I hail from. His name is the one, the only Nikos Moriadis. And you know what? I'm not going to even say his last name. We're gonna have him give us a little lesson in just a little while on the correct pronunciation of his last name. But Nikos is the CEO of Workable. They are a technology startup he co-founded, which is really literally reinventing hiring for ambitious companies. Previously, in the role of VP of Business Development at Upstream, he also played a key role in that company's growth from a startup into one of the world's top marketing technologies companies. He's an investor in some really cool sounding company called TaxiBeat, which I want to hear a little bit more about today. And he's an advisor to several early stage companies. He's been actively promoting and assisting the local startup scene in Athens, Greece, which is pretty cool. And I hope you can get to know him rapidly today. Follow him on the Twitters. And let's have him introduce himself. What's happening, Nikos? And what is the correct pronunciation of your last name?
Hey, Megan. It's Nikos Moraidakis. It's a really great pleasure to be here with you and with everybody watching us.
Welcome.
What would you like to know?
Oh, I want to know everything, of course, because I'm fascinated
of course
by
you do.
talent and culture. I want to know a little bit more about what led you to the role that you're in right now as CEO of Workable. Tell us just a little bit more about you and your walk to this really exciting startup.
Yeah,
I think this goes back into our topic for today.
Is it a walk or a run?
I don't know. It goes a little bit back to the topic we have today. My background in hiring was not from the HR space. I'm not an HR professional. Was more from the side of the line manager, the department manager in a growing company. And I know firsthand, what the true cost of hiring becomes for the people trying to run the business. Because the cost of hiring is not measured just in dollars. It's mostly measured in time and attention of the people actually trying to deliver the day-to-day business. I have been through using various different tools or methods or processes, most of which I believe, and I think we all agree, are to a great extent antiquated today. So when we decided to start a new company and we're looking at what problem we would like to solve, this is the one business problem that I've always felt could need a little bit more, could use a little bit more love. And that's how we started Workable. It started as a tool that is ideal for business owners and department managers, line managers to be able to collaboratively with their HR team take control of their hiring and make it a little bit more effective.
When you talk about your interest in hiring in the HR technology space, tell us a little bit more about Upstream. I think that'll help us understand the transition from Upstream till now.
Well, Upstream was a company that when I joined the company, there were about 10 of us, and in the next 5 years grew to about 250, 300 employees, over $100 million of revenue. And all these employees were in something like 8 locations around the world. So when you're working in a team that grows like that, essentially every line manager in the company has a second title, which is hiring manager. I mean, hiring is everybody's second job. And it's as critical as being able to, do your main job effectively. Because if you cannot get the right people and do it in a reasonable amount of time while you're juggling other things, then you'll fail at your job. And it's in companies like that, because of their fast growth, the problem of hiring just gets exaggerated, gets accentuated. You can see it more clearly. It doesn't mean it doesn't exist in other companies. In every business, the guy who runs a restaurant or a small hotel has the same problem. In an environment like that, I could clearly see that, you could use better methods about it. The traditional method of there's an HR department somewhere, and these guys somehow, figure things out for us, bring us some people, and we make a final selection, isn't a model that really works. The whole company needs to work together to this. And to work together, you need tools that go a little bit better than really old enterprise software or resumes on mailboxes.
So Nikos, is that from your perspective? I mean, yes, from a technology platform, that there are better tools today that can help bridge that gap between recruiting and hiring. But what is really wrong then inherently from a process perspective and technology aside? What's wrong with hiring and hiring managers today? I mean, what's the deal, regardless of company size?
The problem, I think, is ownership and communication, and that is not to do with hiring. In everything you do in business, I've never seen a business problem that wasn't an ownership or communication problem. Nobody really cares about it. Nobody really spends time on it. Nobody communicates well with other people about it. When we do these things about any problem in business, it gets solved. And if you want to link technology to that, my answer wouldn't be that, technology is suddenly going to do these things. No, these are human things. In fact, technology and process should become almost invisible. It's the other way around. It's not that technology should come here, the cavalry is coming and solving the problem.
Yeah.
It's the contrary, that, by having a little bit more old-fashioned tools or not the right tools, or by having processes that were made for the time when we would get printed applications on our mailboxes. By having these things and trying to replicate them, carry them forward, we're just not taking advantage of the fluidity of communication and collaboration and common ownership that we see in other spaces of business. Like, look at CRM, look at marketing automation. Every other thing we do in business has been modernized in this way. And it's not about technology taking center stage. It's about technology doing all the stupid stuff, doing all the tedious stuff and vanishing in the background and let us communicate and get our job done. That's what we need in hiring.
Uh-huh. Hey,
right
Nikos,
on the money. I love it.
As a CEO, what do you feel your core skill set has been? I've worked with, as we all know, hundreds and hundreds of CEOs and with hundreds of brands over the years on the talent side of the house. And, CEOs come in so many different interesting flavors, right? You could be hardcore business focused. You could be a lawyer. You could be a technologist. What do you feel is your core skill set, Nikos, that you bring to these high-growth companies? I'm just curious. And then on another note, I want to hear just a little bit about the startup scene in Athens.
Well, CEOs come in different flavors because companies come in different flavors and different needs.
Right.
In a big established company, you need effective administrators and optimizers. In a fast-growing company, I typically say that I only have two jobs at Workable. One job is recruiting a great team of people, and the other job is finding the money to pay them. Nothing else. If you're doing more than that, you're doing it wrong. If you want to grow a company, the number one thing is to be able to build a fantastic team around it, and the founder's job is basically just to make it happen. Even the money is secondary. I know a lot of people in startups talk about fundraising and investors and VCs, and I think that's a very secondary discussion. The most common thing I hear about, I get to speak to a lot of people about hiring, obviously, with what we do, a lot of founders of fast-growing companies, and the most typical thing I hear is that, I thought that fundraising was hard. Now I have the money. I need to build a team with that. That is the hard part.
That's right.
Yeah, my job, that's why I'm here in Boston, where we moved, and we're growing our team. There's 10 of us already, and it's going to be 50 very soon. Because unless you are where the talent is and you start building your team, you basically are not doing your job.
Love it. And I love that you're so tied to the culture. That's one of the things that attracted me to your brand. And I've actually spent some time with your team, as you know, Nikos, inside the walls of Workable, which is in my hometown and city, which I'm really proud of. And you guys have a freaking awesome space, by the way, in terms of office and culture. And I know, with your growth, and I know, congratulations again. I know you just landed a pretty significant round of venture capital. And so, my hat's off to you and the team for all of that success. culture is so important. And, I mean, we can have the sexiest technology, right, just coming off of the HR Technology Conference. We're seeing that in action. But, your focus on hiring the right team and making that a metaphor for your tool is really important. And so it's, really impressive what you all are accomplishing over there. Because we can, again, you can have the best tech in the world, but if nobody's adopting it and you're not building culture, you still need people, right?
Yes. The culture of the company also is a little bit modeled after the philosophy and design of the product. As I said before, we want the technology to get out of the way. We don't want the technology to be in our face. It has to be, assisting us and not telling us how to do things. So the whole, philosophy of the product is, if it were a person, it would be likable and approachable, easy, speak with simple words, not try to make this sound fancy or sophisticated. Maybe it is behind the scenes, but we don't want to say that it's sophisticated or hard, because most people don't want to make their life hard. Most people want to solve a business problem. They want to mind their own business. And I think even the people and the way we work inside the company, we like people who take that approach, who don't speak with jargon, who understand that this is really a simple problem at the end of the day. If you really take out a lot of the useless stuff around it, and that's what people want. The tools we have loved and the tools we have adopted en masse as a society are not tools that are, wagging the finger at us and telling us how to get more organized or whatever. Are the tools that are just letting us be creative because they get out of the way.
Right. So Nikos, let's talk about, speaking of making things more workable. Get it? So let's talk about let's talk about not only your own experience specifically about how you approach hiring and recruiting at Workable, since you've been scaling, right? You've been growing, and how that you in turn apply that outward to, and what your recommendations are, right? Especially when it comes to ensuring that the talent acquisition side works hand in hand with the hiring manager side, right? In closing candidates and improving process. How do you do it inside, and what do you recommend outside?
Well, for me, hiring, there's two things you need to solve first in order to be able to recruit. One thing is to get the right quality and amount of option. I mean, this comes down to employer branding, would people want to work for you, candidate experience, being transparent, hiring, as you said, discussed recently, even on this medium here, is becoming marketing to a great extent. People can research you, can find out things about you, and then online you can influence what people say about yourself as a workplace. So, being, workplace that through your website, through your communications, so the people you have looks like an attractive workplace. Having an application experience or engagement experience or even headhunting experience that is equally, pleasant and confirms the picture you painted about yourself, that you're a good company, it is the number one thing you need to do in order to be able to start hiring. You need to have options, first of all. The other part of hiring is to be able to make good decisions at a reasonably fast pace about those options. Today, people are not going to wait for you for 3 weeks to decide on the fifth interview whether you like them or not. People do not have the patience to chase after you, and teams internally cannot waste too much time going through all the motions. There's a lot of things that you need to worry about. One thing that I think we do particularly well at Workable is that we put hiring as a task. We have avoided this. It's a second job that we don't mention. So when you have 5 tasks to do, they include your hiring for your team. It's not, here's your work, and hiring is something you're going to do on the weekend, so we're going to chase you up after it's a secondary task. Because when it's a secondary task, line managers will deprioritize it, will pay less attention to it, it will get delayed, it will get done half-heartedly. There are many occasions where we've asked developers to delay developing a feature in favor of hiring another 2 great engineers, because we know eventually that the next 10 features are going to be done faster if we do this job right. And I think that's what many companies miss. They assume that just because they have an HR department, hiring is going to be done efficiently because they have a process. But is the management every day worrying about, the task of hiring as a main line of, a main task of their business as well, and on par with the other things they do.
Right.
Well,
Agreed.
not to mention, Nikos, when you have a startup culture of, say, less than 100 employees, you may not even have an HR department. It may be all hands on deck where, everybody from the CEO to the office manager is having a round of interviews with that candidate. I know, I've been in that spot. Right. So it's like, it's a collective decision. So I think, it's important to have a little bit more of an understanding around the size of and scope of your talent planning around that, and the tools that obviously that are going to help you bring that to full close, right?
Yeah,
to your point earlier, candidates don't have time. They're like, for 5 rounds of interviews? Who cares? You'll know in the first or second round of interviewing a candidate if you're doing it right? And that means tying that to a good candidate experience from my perspective, right? So tell me, Nikos, first of all, what is candidate, that word or that phrase, candidate experience, what does that mean to you, Nikos? And how can candidate experience overall help hiring managers reduce this cost of hiring that we're talking about?
Well, what it means to me. Usually, now that we've grown a little bit, usually on the second interview, when somebody, is close to being hired and I'm going to, choose between 2 or 3 people. And the first question I ask is, how has your experience with the company been so far? Did you like the people you met? Did they treat you respectfully? Was it fast? Did you wait? It's in the same way, I ask the same questions that, let's say, a hotel manager would ask a guest if they saw them at a restaurant. How was your check-in experience? Was your room clean? All the things that we would ask of a customer. Obviously, candidates are not customers, but for the recruiting process, the way we treat them says a lot about who we are and what kind of company we are.
But they could be customers. They could be, right?
They could be. I mean, why would you treat your prospective great talent worse than your customers? This, we need to just get rid of this idea, this post-industrial thinking about employment relationships, that there is an abstract company and some workers and they have some contracts and we treat them as cogs in a machine. Most workers, even in blue-collar jobs today, do not interact with each other this way. Society has changed in this respect. And to put it differently, what I know that we've done a good job? A few months ago, we were interviewing a designer who really wanted the job, and we have been to a couple of interviews, and at the end of the day, we didn't give her the job because there was another one who was so much better. And we got back to her, explained to her that, maybe we'll talk to you in the next opportunity, etc. And 2 months later, somebody comes in recommended for her. Says, I've had this friend who applied to Workable, never got the job, but liked the company so much, even if she didn't get the job, that told me try to get the job there. And
boom, there you go.
And I think that, for me, that is the ideal. This is what we should strive for. When you think about candidate experience, somebody who gets rejected, would even this person recommend their friends to come and work at this company? Because even if you reject someone, even if you reject them on the first call, they came in contact with you. They went to your website. They looked at your stuff. They spoke to some of your people. What do they think about you? And think about the numbers. You hire one person and you reject 100. So, their voice is 100 times stronger. And how many hiring processes do you know that think about that? I think not so many, and I think that's something to be fixed.
I think you're on the right track. I got to tell you, I love your simplicity here. Sometimes that's more powerful than anything else. Really. Can you just tell us a little bit about the startup scene in Athens? I've never been to Greece. It's definitely on my radar, by the way. Hint, hint. We're going to hang out there hopefully soon. But can you tell us about what's going on in the startup scene there? And how much time do you spend traveling right now?
Yeah, look, all over Europe, just like here in the States, there's a lot of activity around technology and startups. There's a lot more financing available. There's been a lot of successes over the past few years. So a lot of people are, starting new companies, and there are startup scenes popping up everywhere. Athens is no exception. Of course, very small country, on the fringe of Europe economically, and so it's, much fewer companies. The ecosystem is not as mature as in other countries, but you know how these things are. It doesn't really matter. When a company strikes it big and goes at a big market and succeeds with something, the origin doesn't matter. Did you know that Skype was from Estonia, one of the tiniest countries in Europe?
Right.
Most people don't. And most people
don't realize that.
Why would we care at the end of the day? That is one transformation that technology has brought about. So, we're coming from an unlikely place, but it's actually exciting in this way. We ended up having a lot of people here in the States, and obviously we're going to grow a lot more here in the States, simply because most of our customers are here. And at the end of the day, company follows their customers eventually. But we have an amazing engineering team there. You know that engineering talent is come by here. And it's becoming a trend right now, especially in smaller European countries, where people can put together great engineering teams with a little bit less competition about this. And this is definitely, one extra weapon in our arsenal. But at the end of the day, it doesn't really matter where you're from on the internet.
Hey, Nikos, we're down to
your candidates.
They are, definitely. We're down to 2 minutes, Nikos. So what I want, real quick, we want to make sure that so tell us really quick, briefly, and but obviously succinctly, like I know you can, how has Workable helped improve the hiring process?
Essentially, Workable does everything you need to do from the point you have to write a job description to the point you make an offer letter about hiring. Manage applicants, create career pages, create a good candidate experience, collect all information about applicants from social, from all over the web, collaborate with your team, everything, schedule interviews, anything you will need to do owns that part of the process. And it's expressly aimed to be friendly to hiring managers, to be a tool that, the other people in your company will love using and love actually collaborating on. And it's expressly built for the small and medium company in mind. So even if you have a company of 20 people and you're managing yourself, you can solve this problem with Workable with as little as $20 a month. And if you're a company with 200 people, again, you can solve this problem, and your colleagues will love you for choosing that kind of interface. That is what Workable offers. I don't want to talk about features. Just try it out. It's so easy. Just click a button on a free trial. See for yourselves how easy it is to use.
Great. Awesome. Thanks, Nikos.
Thank you very much.
Thanks so much for being here.
Yeah.
It was a pleasure.
Now it's time for Twitter chat, everybody. So let's jump on over there.
Over to Twitter. Thanks for being with us. Over and out.
All right. We'll see ya.
All right.